Thank you. Today's reading comes from Tapestry of Faith's Heeding the Call curriculum, part of our Unitarian Universalist faith formation. I'm going to start by saying this is not a true story. The first time I heard this story told in church, that message was not given and I was not really paying attention. I got very confused. It's a wonderful story. It's a parable. We learn from it. It did not happen. This version is based on a story attributed to a bunch of different people over the years, including Saul Alinsky and Irving Zola. It's also a good one. Again, it didn't really happen. If you are so inclined to kind of close your eyes and maybe you want to visualize the story as it's being told. Once upon a time, there was a small village on the edge of a river. Life in this village was very, very busy. There were people growing food and others teaching children to make blankets and people constantly cooking meals. One day, a villager took a break from harvesting food and noticed a baby floating down the river toward the village. She could not believe her eyes. She heard crying in the distance and looked downstream to see that 2 babies had already floated by the village. She looked around at her fellow villagers working nearby. "Does anyone else see that baby?" she asked. One villager heard the woman but continued on working. "Yes," yelled a man who'd been making soup. "Oh, this is terrible," a woman who had been building a campfire shouted. "Look, there are even more babies upstream." Indeed, there were 3 more babies coming around the bend in the river. "How long have these babies been floating by?" asked another villager. No one knew for sure, but some people thought that they might have seen something in the river earlier. They were too busy at the time and didn't bother to investigate. But these villagers, they quickly organized themselves to rescue the babies once they knew. Watchtowers were built on both sides of the shore, and swimmers were coordinated to maintain shifts of rescue teams that kept 24-hour surveillance of the river. Zip lines with baskets were stretched across the river to get even more babies to safety quickly. The number of babies floating down the river, though, only seemed to increase. So the villagers built orphanages, and they taught even more children to make blankets, and they increased the amount of food they grew to keep the babies housed and warm and fed. Life in the village carried on. Then one day, at a meeting of the village council, a villager asked, "But, where are the babies coming from?" No one knows," said another villager, "but I kind of feel like we should organize a team and maybe go upstream and see if we can find out who's throwing all these babies in the river." Not everyone was in agreement. "But we need all the people here to help us pull the babies out of the river," said one villager. "That's right," said another villager, "and who will be here to cook for them and look after them if a bunch of us all go upstream?" The council chose to let the village decide. No matter how many times I hear that story of the babies in the river, and there are many different versions of it, I'm struck by its power to influence my understanding of the impact of my own actions in the world. It always provides an aha moment for whatever I'm going through. Because I confess I would have made the best river baby plucker. I can see myself so clearly in this story that I have to laugh. I would have been out there on the front lines with a stopwatch and a flowchart and zip lines and baskets and warming blankets and cow's milk or soy milk or breast milk or almond milk or all of it. I love a complicated problem that requires even quite literally getting our feet wet. If there's just so much to do that it seems impossible, I can at least build you a spreadsheet in a Google Calendar, and together we can sign up genius our way out of the mess. But that's really not the point, of course. Friends, we need to find out who or what is putting these babies in the river. And then we have to stop them. That's the real job here, and no spreadsheet is going to fix it. It's going to take all of us. From where we stand today on the river's edge, we do not know what we're up against next, upstream. It feels really big and really scary. At least down here, we've figured out how we can help, and we could just keep doing that. We could go upstream and soon enough find ourselves tossed in the river. And if I end up caught in the terrible current, or you, or you, or you, and we're on the verge of being swept under, who's going to be there to save us? Because that's the thing. We can't entirely abandon our work on the shoreline to go off to slay whatever dragon may be lurking upstream. We need to diversify. We have lots of resources, and we can think creatively about how to best deploy those resources to save as many people or babies as possible. We must realize that preventing any babies from ending up in the river is the only way we're ever really going to be able to rest, or to think about tackling any of the other problems in our village. The absurdity of this story with its endless stream of floating babies makes it a useful teaching tool. We can all think of some metaphorical babies we're trying to rescue. Maybe your mind even jumped to the real babies and families you've been supporting through Common Grounds or Shepherd's Pantry or Humanity at Work or whatever your thing is. This story is at its core a lesson about charity and justice, and how we must be careful not to prioritize our noble charity efforts so much that we forget about the paramount work of creating and then expanding justice. The Southern Poverty Law Center has an educational project known as Learning for Justice. It's been around for a long time, but their curriculum on the intersecting work of charity and justice is a really great resource for people of all ages. The lessons begin, of course, by defining the key terms so that we can understand their relationship. Charity is considered aid given to those in need. Often charity is a tangible thing we provide, right? Like money or food, or a service-oriented action we take, like baking or driving or tutoring. Justice is more conceptual. It can be defined as fairness or equity, or the fair distribution of advantages, assets, and benefits among all members of a society. That sounds simple enough, but we all know it isn't. We hear the definition and can agree that justice sounds lovely, admirable. But how do we transform this world that exists to a truly just world? With so much injustice, where do we even begin to build that just world we dream of? My personal theology relies upon my faith in that interdependence of all beings. I believe that our interdependence empowers each of us to be the salvation of one another and ourselves. We don't need to wait for an afterlife. We can do this for each other on this earth in this life. The transformative nature of true liberation requires that all of us participate in bringing it to reality. Sustained charity and justice-seeking efforts help us deal with societal problems. But when we think more about the motivation behind our efforts, we sometimes realize that charity views the problems it aims to correct as unfortunate accidents, or even the fault of the person affected. So charity offers Band-Aid solutions. We eagerly provide coats and blankets for the unhoused because we truly care that they are warm despite having to live outside. That is kindness, and it is so important. And we can also dream bigger and decide we don't want anyone to be forced to live outside anymore. We must continue to supply those warm coats while we all get to work on making our community a place where everyone has the option to have a roof over their head. That's the difference, right? Justice requires that we see our societal problems not as individual failings, but for what they truly are. Systemic problems caused by social forces that oppress people and groups. We inherit most of these problems, which are very difficult to solve because solutions require radical changes to the social structures that cause the oppression. We can't just swing by Market Basket or TJ Maxx and shop our way out of our oppressive systems. We have to go much deeper. As philosopher and activist Cornel West reminds us, we must never forget that justice is what love looks like in public. Our Unitarian Universalist values require us to take action, not just to agree in principle. And they also invite us to engage in deeper learning and connection with our community, past, present, and future. This village here at the Unitarian Universalist Society of Fairhaven first got together like over 200 years ago. Your congregational ancestors saw their share of challenges. Many of you have been members here for years or even decades. You've seen a lot too. Others happened upon this place much more recently and are probably still very much trying to figure out what the heck is going on here. For some of us, it was those activities beyond Sunday worship that led us to church in the first place or that kept us coming back. Today was supposed to be the first session of working through Deepa Iyer's book, Social Change Now, after church. That's been moved to next week, and I hope you'll consider joining us. The book is an excellent tool. It'll help you map out exactly how UUSF is working for social change and where we want to focus together next. And if you haven't read it yet, it's easy, it's accessible. You can read as much or as little as you want before you come, but come next week. We do have the books available. Sometimes, though, there's a longing in our hearts that we struggle to articulate. I know I've had this experience many times, and in 2018, I showed up at a weeknight meeting in the auditorium here at this church. I had just started attending on Sundays, and I was drawn to something in the language in the newsletter about gathering to talk and learn about immigration justice, even though we didn't know what to do. And I personally knew nothing about immigration in this country at this time, but it was the moment where we were putting kids in cages, and my heart was pulling me there. And that initial meeting probably changed the direction of my life. Without that chance meeting of like 8 sweet people and Reverend Paul, and I know Larry and Kelly and I think Janet were there, I wouldn't be here speaking with you today. And I'm grateful for that. Transforming a community through collective action is a beautiful experience despite the frustration and despair and disappointment that inevitably happen along the way. We need each other in this work. It is slow and it is messy and it feels like it may never be done, but it must be done. I'm reminded of our interdependence when I look at my random Post-it notes that decorate every wall of my office. And one of them, and I do not remember who said these words to me or where it came from, but it says, "Is this relationship transactional or transformational?" Somebody along the way suggested I start asking that question when I was feeling overwhelmed by the work, and it is a great one. And it speaks to the heart of what we aim to do here at church. We want to move away from the transactional elements of being in relationship with each other and the wider world. We are ready to transform. And we can do that by committing to this community and to doing the work of justice and charity together. In so doing, we can make our ancestors proud and our children proud and give those future generations a fighting chance that we know they so deserve. Best of all, we can have fun together and bring joy and camaraderie to our justice-seeking and service-giving work together. May it be so, and amen.